Hey everyone. So a lot of the time when I talk about chickens with people who don't have them, they'll tell me something to the effect of, "Oh, it would be so cool to have chickens, but I don't want to deal with the smell. I don't want to deal with cleaning up poop." And in my experience keeping chickens, that's always been such a non-issue that I wanted to share what I do to manage waste in my coop and how I utilize my waste, because that's like, if that's the only thing keeping somebody from keeping chickens, then there's really no reason that should be the case, because it's really a non-issue if you manage your coop bedding correctly. Now, you may have heard of a bedding method called the deep litter method, which is essentially all we're going to talk about today. All that means is you're going to put down a layer of bedding, so straw, pine shavings, whatever it is that you use. You're going to put that down in the coop, and then the chickens are going to deposit their waste over time. Then you'll just throw on more when it seems like they've deposited a bit of waste, and continue forever. I feel like a lot of people have heard of this method, but they think it's like too good to be true or something, because they still seem to think you need to clean your coop pretty often. I have had this coop for, I believe, over a year, and I've never fully cleaned it out. A lot of people find that hard to believe, but it's true. Really, just with the deep litter method. With the deep litter method, I notice a lot of people online talking about how they clean their coops out still way more often than I do, like every few months. So I wanted to share 3 things that I do to make it so I, pretty much never or otherwise very rarely have to clean out my coop. The first thing that I do that I think is really helpful in keeping down on litter maintenance is that I understock my coop. So what that means is I have fewer chickens in my coop than a coop of this size can handle. So this coop is 6 by 12, and if you follow conventional wisdom that says a chicken needs 4 square feet of coop space per bird, then you would be able to put about 20 birds in this coop. A little bit more, because they have access at times to this whole fenced in area, and at all times into this 8 foot in length, 6 foot in width chicken run. So they have more than just their coop space, as well as all that space underneath the coop itself. Yeah, conventional wisdom says that you could have 20 birds in this coop. I have, my numbers fluctuate, but I have anywhere between 8 and 12 at any given time. And so right there at about half the stocking rate, I'm able to keep the manure from ever getting up to a very kind of significant enough point where I have to do a muck out. With the generous amount of bedding, it really just starts decomposing at a rate that's faster than what the chickens can deposit in it, and it just never becomes a problem. The next thing we've already touched on, but I'll expand on it: generous bedding. So whatever it is that you use, and you should use a diversity of materials if you can, especially if you could get something for free. Like, there's some dry leaves in here. Something I had access to: pine shavings, straw. There's just a diversity of carbonaceous material in here. Just, it's better to use too much than too little. Just be super generous with it. It's really not that expensive, even if you have to buy it. It's definitely worth not having to clean out a coop as often. So just whenever you see a significant amount of manure deposit, just toss on bedding generously into that area. You don't have to spread it out. So this coop, like I said, 12 feet in length, I can't easily get back there, and I don't need to. I just toss the bedding and the chickens spread it themselves. So they do most of the work there. I just literally throw it in. So yeah, generous bedding is the second thing that's going to help you out here. Last thing is good ventilation. So I have 4 little windows here. The screens there are, so the window is always open. There's a window screen, but the window itself is always open all year round. And that door is almost always open. There's also a little bit of airspace in between the roof and the walls there. You can't see it on camera, but there's a little bit of space. It's not sealed off. So ventilation is really important. Moisture is really your worst enemy in a chicken coop. Anything that allows the ammonia and the moisture to evaporate out is going to really go far in reducing smell. And touching on smell, because that's a major part of this video, I have no smell in this coop. I wish we could invent smell-o-vision and you guys could sniff it yourselves so that you can believe me, because I know a lot of people find it hard to believe, but it doesn't smell in here. On a hot day, like 90 degrees, it might smell a little bit, but that's only like if you're sticking your face right up against the coop, like into the window or into this clean out door. Yeah, so low stocking rate, generous amounts of bedding, and excellent ventilation, you will get nice and far, and you will have very little maintenance into your chicken coop. But every once in a while, you have to / should clean out your coop, because chickens don't just produce eggs, they produce a wonderful nutrient-dense fertilizer for your garden. Chickens and gardens go together great. You really, if you have chickens and you don't garden, you really should, because you're really missing out on essentially half of what they produce. So the other thing that you can now do with this bedding, and should do periodically, and what I'm going to do right now, is fully clean it out. I'm going to fill up my wheelbarrow, and from there, there's a couple of things that you could do. What you should probably do is use it to start a compost pile. So composting, again, is a whole science, but I kind of treat it more like an art. I know you have to have your greens and your browns, so your nitrogens and your carbons, and that's kind of what we're already doing in here. So the poop is the nitrogen, the bedding is the carbon. And although I'm not like carefully balancing the ratio, I do have both of them in here. So what you can do is just muck all this out and just start a compost pile with it. That's probably the best option. That's what I would probably do if I didn't have a sort of unique opportunity right now to just fill a garden bed. So I built another raised bed, and I want to just muck this all out, put it in there, cover it with some soil, and hopefully over the winter it more or less composts even further than it already has started doing. But yeah, my case is kind of a special case. What most people would probably do is muck all this out and start a compost pile with it. You could just put this in a pile somewhere on your property, and just this could be your compost pile, or you could amend it with whatever it needs. So if you think you're light on carbon, you could add more dry leaves or something else that's carbonaceous like that, some wood chips, things of that nature. If you need your greens, your nitrogen, then maybe you'll add some kitchen scraps or some other nitrogen source. But I like to be lazy, so I'd probably, if I was composting this, just put it in a pile and give it some time, maybe wet it with the hose and then give it some time. But this year I have the opportunity to be even lazier and just toss it right in a raised bed, cover it with a thin layer of soil, and let it decompose over the winter. I'm going to start doing that. This is, still a dirty job, even though it doesn't smell. It's not that gross, and I only do it very, very rarely. So good practice is to wear gloves, wear clothes that you don't love too much and that you could throw right in the wash. And once I muck this out, fill up the wheelbarrow and bring it over to the garden, I'll check back in with you and see if this, what portion of that bed this fills. Okay, so here I am in the garden. I got 4 wheelbarrows full of chicken bedding out of the coop. All of it is now in here, and I'm pretty happy about that. I got a significant amount of volume out of that coop, and it's pretty much just going to work as free fertilizer in my garden. So below this muck, I have a very thin layer of cardboard and like woody material, branches and stuff. It doesn't fill up much volume, so most of the volume in this bed right now is from the chicken muck, which is great. It's about half to 2/3 filled. It's hard to tell because it's not super evenly distributed, but I'll have to even it out. But certainly a lot of material filling this bed up, so I'm happy about that. The job took about 45 minutes, so to do that once a year and to get all this free fertilizer, that's great. I'm super happy with that. So the next step here is I'm going to follow essentially the same method that I did in my previous video. Just going to try to fill this garden bed for free. I'm going to use some of the soil from around the garden here. It was tarped off, so there's not anything sprouting from it, so that's good. And again, going to try to fill this for free, which should be pretty easy. There should be plenty of soil here to do that. So yeah, hope you learned something. I hope you learned that, you know, keeping chickens is not like a constant stream of shoveling shit and dealing with disgusting stuff. That's really a very small and infrequent part of it if you manage your coop right, and you really get something great from your birds other than just eggs. So hope you enjoyed, hope you learned something, and I'll see you again soon.